So this tofu vegan chicken is actually a recipe that came from Healthy Foodie PH, and I did make a few modifications to that, but you'll be able to see in the description box below a link to be able to get on over to that original recipe. Now when it comes to tofu, I like tofu as an option because it has a lot of protein and it has generally a pretty good flavor to it. Now tofu comes in a block form, right? And that certainly is not the same shape as chicken breast. So one step that you have to take is you have to tear up the block of tofu and get it into a little bit different shape to make that a little bit more dynamic to the chicken breast shape. Now of course that is optional, just depends upon how close you want it to be of a vegan alternative. Now the first step that I had to take with the tofu though was I had to use a tofu press. It's a little contraption that you just stick the tofu in the middle there and tighten the sides, and it squeezes out the liquid that is inside of the tofu. So that was a pretty easy process, and of course I used the torn pieces of tofu as kind of like a popcorn chicken. And so this recipe is super simple because you just kind of play around with that tofu and then you put it in the spice mixture. And the spice mixture I think was great because it gave a really good flavor when it came out of the air fryer. Now the downside is that you still have a lot of that strong tofu flavor, and so that's the piece that's a little bit of a miss, right? And so when you bite into a chicken breast, you're certainly not tasting tofu. So that is a piece that wasn't quite to my likings that I wish was adjusted in this recipe. As well as the spices are great with this tofu. However, I wouldn't use this recipe for like a chicken breast to go with some other dishes. So like if you were going to use so if you were going to make a pasta with like a grilled chicken, this wouldn't necessarily be the best recipe because the recipe is good because of the spices. Now, one thing that was also great about the recipe though was the way that I cooked the tofu, and that was using an air fryer. And so the air fryer, not only did it cook, but it also kind of dried the tofu a little bit. So that made it a little bit more tough, and it had a little bit better of a pull when you're using your fork to separate that bite. It's giving some of that pull that you get from chicken. So that was also another thing that I liked. To answer the question of, is this recipe a good vegan chicken alternative? Well, I would say yes. However, you can't use it in all of the same recipes that you would use a piece of grilled chicken in. So this chicken came from a recipe by Plated 365. Now, I was doing a search online. I really wanted to find a gluten-free vegan chicken option, and so I came up with this recipe. And through making this recipe, I would say that I really enjoy the flavor that comes out of this. However, this is not a chicken recipe to me. This is more of a veggie patty that you're probably going to end up using more so as you know, a veggie patty sandwich, or maybe you're going to make these patties and kind of break up the pieces and put it in a salad or something like that, because it's a great flavor. It's just not an equal substitute. Now, the thing that I also like about this is that it is definitely a healthy recipe. And you know, I like chickpeas, and so you certainly get a strong chickpea flavor. So that may be the piece of this recipe that you don't like, because if you're not a fan of chickpea flavor, then you're gonna want to avoid this one, right? But if you don't mind chickpeas, then this is great. So this recipe is tasty. It's loaded with protein, fiber. It's loaded with all kinds of nutrients because of the different ingredients that go into this recipe. But again, this is not an even swap out for chicken. So when it comes to that piece, like, can you make this and just put it on a pasta dish or substitute it equally in for grilled chicken? You can't. You certainly can't. But if you're looking for something to, like I said, put in salads or make a chicken sandwich out of, or something like that, you can, knowing that you're going to get a veggie patty. When it comes to these two recipes, I set out to find an equal substitute for grilled chicken. And these recipes, though both of them are good and they're enjoyable in their own way, I wouldn't necessarily say that these are the best alternatives as for an equal swap. but they're absolutely delicious and they both have their own benefits. So I would definitely recommend trying these out. Play around with them, make them your own a little bit, and really, go from there and really kind of, just gain some experience in the vegan chicken, because when it comes to alternative meats, the sky's the limit. There's so many different options, so many ingredients that benefit here and there. But I'm going through here and making sure that you all can have a one-stop shop and figure out what is the right chicken for you to use in your recipes.